couple of things. I get up every morning and come down and watch the sunrise on the river. And I recommend that you do something like that if you can. I want to mention something for Elon Musk and his cruise. Time is not created, but is noticed by the rotation around the vital center of a higher world. And for example, the Earth rotates around the Sun. The Sun is a higher world. The Sun rotates around Vega, which is a higher world for the Sun. And all of the galaxies rotate around the center, which is the higher world for all the galaxies. In the mystery schools, they teach scaling. The as above, so below is just a cover story. The pattern is the same, just different sizes. And if you use scaling, which is about 1,000,000 times, is the yardstick, you see that the laws are the same in a larger universe or a smaller galaxy or atom. So one of the rules of esoteric science is the perception of a higher world by a human is one-dimensional. It looks flat, like looking at the stars in the Milky Way. It looks like a big flat plane, but it is actually three-dimensional at minimum. But we can't see it. Being earthbound, and everything we do is connected with hundreds of thousands of years of dealing with the surface of the Earth. Now, I was an amateur astronomer when I was a teenager, and I was lying on my garage roof with a pair of binoculars once, looking at the stars, and just for a brief moment, I saw the three-dimensionality of the stars, and it was terrifying. Never seen it again. But from the records of interstellar cultures, which are available, if you only ask, they generally do their exploration with robots, because they found that living beings tend to go mad when confronted with the three-dimensional vastness of space, plus the loss of havingness, which means I used to have a planet, I used to have a life, I used to have a wife, I used to have a dog, I used to have a past, I used to have a future. All of that's gone, and you have nothing but yourself in a little tin can in an unconfrontable vast space. So it's possible that these crews that Mr. Musk is going to send to Mars may actually lose control of their connection between their soul and their body. Well, they do practice this, but they've never seen it. And it's still not confirmed whether you can see the stars in space. There are no pictures where you see the stars in the background. There's two kinds of pictures. There's no stars, or there are the fabulous paintings presented to us as visions of the solar system for the Hubble, or now the Webb. So no one has answered this question. It might be possible that you need an atmosphere to make the stars visible to a human being. And really, how terrifying would it be to be above the Earth and realize you're just in a vast, empty, black space? How are we going to navigate? Part 2 is I just was made aware of the generations beyond the baby boomers, I guess the X, Y, Z, etc., are angry at the baby boomers for screwing up the planet. And it's not the baby boomers who did it, it's the corrupt politicians who lied to us and told us we were living in a democracy and we had freedom and protection and the police and the army and ambulance and honest news to keep us informed. There's a person, and I will repost his videos. He's the brother of one of the former very important personage in the Department of Justice around the time of 9/11. Moved to Vancouver, Canada, and he said it wouldn't take him long to figure out that Canada is the most corrupt jurisdiction anywhere. It's just kept quiet. So, generation, I'm 74 in 5 days. So it's a little late for me to save the world, but if you're young, I would suggest you guys get groups together and unelect the current group of politicians and elect one of yourselves. There's I have a friend whose business was burned down. He's running for city council now. And I tried to warn him about the evil of politics. And he was in an army in another country where they were actually having to kill people. And he knew all about it, and he said it's incredibly corrupt and cruel and mean and vicious and petty. And this is the city council, and I had a friend who worked for a minister, and he said 2 things. The minister doesn't do anything. There's a major civil servant there who has been on the job for years who can handle the post and does so. And on the first day, they bring in several 4-foot-high stacks of material and say, well, here's your portfolio, you better get on this. And the guy basically can't be bothered to do that amount of work. So the civil servant says, I'll handle this for you. Keeps his job. And my friend was an assistant, and he said he brought some really good and doable changes about housing for low-income people. The guy, minister, wouldn't even look at it. And then my friend said, you just have to sign it, and then we can do this. And his only concern was keeping his job, keeping an office. And there's no concept of taking one for the team where you go, this is unethical, I am not going to allow this. And then you get expunged from the party, but at least you've done some good. And this is happening on a very large scale in the U.S. A lot of the government has turned out to be compromised and also involved in selfish criminal activity. And they don't want to lose their donuts, so they've been bought and paid for. There is a site that says the U.S. government is the best government you can buy, and it costs about $1.8 million a year to own it. Which is chicken feed on the international scale. So now we have a few billionaires telling the government, because they're bribed and or blackmailed or just plain undesirables, what to do about issues. And these are the World Economic Forum unelected, the Council on Foreign Relations unelected, the Rockefeller Foundation unelected. And if you bother to watch the debates in Congress, you see people either proposing really good stuff or trying to stop lies and corruption. But the corruption continues. And I'm in Canada, and it's the same in Britain. The Parliament is two sides. Two houses, a curse on both your houses, and they just do this weird thing of the Honourable Minister is an idiot. And then that guy gets up and says, blah, 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 you're wrong, you're the idiot. And it's kind of like grade school. And if anything happens that might actually get something done about the corruption, the Speaker of the House turns the guy's mic off. I've seen that happen twice. And the third time, when we were doing the remote on COVID, a minister was putting the boots to some corruption, and the Speaker of the House said, oh, the feed's gone bad, we can't hear anymore, we'll get back to you later. Click. So this needs to be revamped with you young people who are bitching and complaining. Because if you get a majority of you people in any party, and then the Parliament is saying Do you vote yay or nay on this stupid shit that's happening here? And you will say nay. This stupid shit will stop happening. There is in Canada, a massive agreement was made between the natives and the British Crown government that holds Canada as a colony. They gave about a third of Canada to the natives. It's called Nunavut, and they have their own laws. It's basically the Canadian Shield, which is where all the minerals are. And at the top of it, there's this huge iron mine that's been there, open pit mine, on the Arctic Circle. And it was shut down, or they're going to shut it down because of pollution in the area. And instead of going to the mining company and saying you have to literally clean up your act, which they could do, and the reason for doing this is it's affecting the caribou. I'm descended from the natives here, and I know that the caribou are not stupid. If they have a problem across a few years, they will move their migration run. There's a story, this is a true story. There is a caribou run near a city called Cranbrook, and you don't see them all year, and then suddenly they go on a migration from north to south. And they go through this one particular valley, and the Indians would wait for that time of the year and slaughter as many as they could. And use the hides for tents and clothing, and the antlers for tools, and they would eat the meat and turn the leftover meat into dried pemmican for the winter. Well, this went on for several years, and finally the caribou went, okay, every time we go through that valley, we get decimated, so we're going to go another way. And they went another way. And the Indians waited, and there were no caribou. And they had a very hungry winter. The shutting down of the mine is part of the squeezing that's being done. And a lot of these global warming initiatives should be told that cars produce carbon monoxide, industry produces carbon dioxide, and as well as the big agri-farms which are making food for animals so that people can eat meat. On a large scale, it's about 20 to 30% of the methane, carbon dioxide. And the real culprit is methane, which is 4 times the greenhouse gas that carbon dioxide is. And I looked at, there's a company going after methane emissions from capped oil wells. And in one state of the United States, and they're probably all pretty similar, there were 6,600 capped wells, and they were all leaking methane to one degree or another. Methane is natural gas, which humans are using for heating their homes and cooking. So it's going to waste, leaking into the atmosphere. And a lot of wells, you see the big flame burning in the night, that is the methane that they are burning, which could be captured, compressed, and turned into liquid natural gas and sold. So this is a much bigger area that could be attacked by new young MPs, Generation X, Y, Z, etc., that the oil companies have to put captured compression devices on their wells so we can turn all that waste natural gas into something we can use. And another fact behind all this is oil companies are owned by giant insurance companies. They take their money and they invest in oil companies. And when there's a disaster and they have to pay out a lot, like Katrina, for example, they raise the price of gas to compensate for their losses. That is the real reason for the increase in gas prices. And appended to that is the Rockefeller / Egyptians. They're the Egyptian royalty. Descended from the family of pharaohs. Got a hold of the oil business in the last century, and that's where they got their fortune from, and they don't want it stopped. Again, are they going to take one for the team, which is humanity? It seems not. They make a lot of movies where the father has to stay behind and set off the atomic bomb by hand because the automatic radio detonator won't work. And he's taking one for the team, saving humanity, like Bruce Willis in Armageddon. But I don't see any of that in the real world. So, X, Y, and Z. You need to take your thumbs and take down the corrupt politicians. There's nothing wrong with the governments. There's people for hundreds of years, even from Roman law, have put in laws to stop corruption. Like price fixing was illegal in Rome 2,000 years ago. But people put up a good law, and then ways are worked on to get around it. Still tribal. A judge's son crashes a car, kills 3 young, beautiful teenage girls who could have been mothers. And because he's a judge's son, he gets off. It's tribalism. And this is 2022. We have everybody wants to rule the world. China's been trying to set it up so they can rule the world. The U.S. had set it up so they rule the world with 1,900 military bases overseas. Russia, which is landlocked and has unbelievable resources. wants to expand and rule the world so it can export its stuff. It's a little late for that. It's time for scientific cooperation, not stealing stuff. And watch out, Africa, because the United States is after you. The Europeans are after you. The Russians are after you. The Chinese are after you. You have a huge continent there full of people, resources. You've been fighting for thousands of years, but I think the latest fighting has been encouraged by Caucasians to get rid of you, so they can have the gold and the ivory. And what you need is schools and non-corrupt, strongman leaders. So, the Africans, neither a lender nor a borrower be. I have someone I went to high school with. We had a little tiny reunion. He is working for the U.S. Department of Justice in Africa, and what he's doing is building police training facilities. And before that, he was in Jordan years ago. This is minimum 7 years ago, doing the same thing, building police training facilities to be used in the future, which is now. China is there in Africa building docks and things and roads, and we'll give you all this infrastructure in exchange for allowing us to mine X. And then you owe money. It's called the Belt and Road Initiative. And the largest underground reservoir of clean, fresh water is in the middle of Africa. And everyone's trying to get that. I don't remember where, but where the 200 Muslim schoolgirls were kidnapped. That's where that happened. And that was done to scare the crap out of the prime minister of that country. So he'll do what he's told. So I'm a baby boomer, but I've been fighting what you're complaining about for 50 years. And I've been on the net since 2010. I had more than 80 videos on there, and I continue to do this. But we were lied to. Our parents were the generation that went to Europe and stopped the Nazis. And there was the baby boom when everybody came back, and the economy rose like crazy till 1965, which was the pinnacle of the West. There was 2.5% of the people in the United States, 2.5% of the world population, and they had 50% of the wealth because of the exportation of expertise, machinery, knowledge. And of course that's where the rats came to chew, because that's where the money is. So the Chinese say, may you live in interesting times. This is, I was going to say man-made disaster, but it's a psychopath-made disaster. It should be a law that you can't be in government if you're a psychopath. And there is a test for that. So I'm going to leave you with what the baby boomers were not told. And when I heard this, I didn't like it one little bit. The phrase is, it's not a well-meaning world. People in the third world countries know that. We have been naive to it. Our parents tried to protect us from evil. And that's the why of the baby boomers. So please don't judge us harshly, because judge not that ye be not judged. They are waiting for us to die off because we're all in our 70s. And almost all of us will be gone in another 6 years. And all of the experience in that generation will just disappear into the grave. I've been researching this since 1972. And there's lots of people who've done a much better job than I have. To the point where I sometimes think maybe I shouldn't bother, because there's people like Glenn Beck and Gutfield and doing incredible work to expose the corruption. But I dare not. It would be irresponsible of me to bail. I just managed to reach 1.2 million people, which is not bad. I guess, like Melanie said, we did all right for a girl.